So I barely speak English. I speak one language, which is not one of my strengths. So there are some translation headsets for you. What am I doing here? I sometimes ask myself, and what do I have to share with you? I hope what we have to do is going to be practically useful to you. And I'm really glad I went after Sergey. His talk about engagement has to do with emotions. So this topic of emotions, emotional intelligence, I think will be really relevant to all of you. If you are creating content, if you are, anyone here manage people? Okay. Anyone here have a boss that you have to manage? Yeah. So these skills are universal and they apply throughout your entire life. So what happens when there we go, terrific. Imagine a day in your life, maybe yesterday. What time did you wake up? How did you feel? Did you get enough sleep? Okay. Did you get on a subway? A nice, uncrowded subway ride to work. Some of you drove to work, and in Moscow, that's usually not a problem. There's no traffic. Did you go to an office? Do you work at home? Anyone have children? Anyone? You're all too young probably to have children. Yeah, so they got up out of bed with smiles on their faces and went off to school. It was lunch. Did you eat lunch? Some of you did, some of you didn't. Did anyone have a deadline that you had to meet? Work is pretty easygoing. There's not much that happens. Just you sit around, you drink coffee, or this is Russia, so maybe just some vodka, and you're just talking about life. Maybe there's a siesta in the afternoon. It's the end of work. It's probably 3 o'clock. You go home. So your lives are pretty easy. Or are they full of emotion? Or does your emotional life look like this? It's up, it's down, it's stressful, it's joyous. Life is full of emotion every single day. For you, for your clients, for your boss, for your family. This is what your life probably looks like. It's full of emotions. And that's why we're here today. You may have experienced some degree of all of these emotions. The first one, I'm going to read this in Russian. I think the first one is happiness. Pretty good, right? Why are you happy? You're happy because you gain something of value. You're sad because you lose something of value. These are why we have emotions. Emotions are intelligent, and they're universal across cultures. I travel a lot. Last week I was in China, in Beijing. Next week, I'll be in Los Angeles, and then Amsterdam, and then Dublin. Emotions are universal. Everyone experiences all these emotions. But what makes you happy may not make you happy. These are individual differences. So, what are two sports teams here in Russia that are competitors? Okay, would you tell me what those are?
Well, for instance, Spartak and Zenit. CSKA, whatever.
Oh.
No, there are two different cities, Moscow and St. Petersburg. In Moscow is Spartak, and there are many of them.
Which is better?
Wow. Tough question.
Tough question. Who do you want to win?
Spartak.
Everyone agree?
Mm.
Oh. Same event, two different emotions. Thank you. Right? Same event, two different emotions. What makes you happy may make you sad. What makes you angry may make you disgusted. These are things that you need to know about yourself and about your clients, about your customers. This is what engagement is. Just because you think it's funny, somebody else may not. Just because it makes you really, really mad, someone else may be incredibly happy. Because emotions are data. Emotions have information. The quote is from a very famous scientist. His name is Antonio Damasio. He says, we can read it, but it says, far from interfering with rationality, the absence of emotion can break down rationality and make wise decision-making almost impossible. Without emotions, you make very bad decisions. That's something that's different than what we're taught. Does anyone here make decisions? Okay, so some of you. Okay. Did you ever make a bad... Does anyone here have a friend who's made a bad decision? Okay. My guess, and his research says, your friend who made the bad decision did so because they ignored their emotion. Did this friend have a bad feeling about something and they ignored it? Does that happen to any of your friends? Yeah. Damasio says our decisions, the best ones, are where emotions help us think, which is not how we're taught. Now, you can have two reactions. Here we go. Two reactions. You can be completely logical, or you can use emotions. And let me just warn you that, is anyone here very outgoing and not easily embarrassed? Oh, great. What just happened? Would you... Oh, good arm. What just happened? Would you come up here? Yeah, you, my friend. Come here. What happened is I gently threw this ball. Oh, nice catch. You're going to play for that team. And you had an emotional reaction. You caught the ball, but it looked like what? What did it look like? Okay, it looked like, here's the ball, it's coming, and it looked like, okay, freeze. Okay, freeze. Okay. Yeah, it was more like that, right. And I think you're, okay, good. All right, so freeze. Okay. What emotion is this? Surprise. What are the three features of surprise? The first is, can everyone see? The first, why are his eyes open like that? To see what's going on. The second feature is the mouth is wide open. Wide open. And listen to what happens. Why is he doing that? Why is that smart? Needs more oxygen. Also getting ready to yell, to warn everyone, because, you know why? Because he loves all of you. And he will sacrifice himself for your safety. There's the third feature of surprise, which was that. And you actually caught the ball, which was very impressive. Yeah. So that is why you have emotions. Thank you for volunteering. I appreciate that. But don't go. Hold this. Why don't you tell people your name and who you are?
Окей. Я буду по-русски. Меня зовут Андрей. Я возглавляю маркетинг и курирую департамент рекламы в компании SOX.
So for volunteering, I brought this from, I work at a university, and this is the university's Feel how heavy that is. Yeah. I wouldn't throw that at you. That's the seal of the Yale University in Latin. So, thank you. Thank you for volunteering. Thank you so much. Great. Good. Now, you're taught it's kind of interesting, so when you're trying to present and then your slides don't work, as before, do you get angry, do you get annoyed, do you get irritated? Or, because if you do, that's a problem. So maybe I will throw it. You had an emotional reaction. Without that emotion, you would have been hit in the head by this thing. What you are taught, anyone here go to business school? A few of you. So business school, anyone here an engineer? I love engineers, okay. You would do this, you'd compute a formula, right? What's the trajectory of an object? How long would it take you to do this, to figure out the answer? Where is this ball going? It might take a few seconds, a few minutes. Meanwhile, this ball has maybe hit you in the head, which is a problem. So emotions help you. Thank you. So that's by way of background. Now, what we mean by emotional intelligence, it consists of 4 skills. And I think you can use this approach in everything you do, every interaction you have, as you're creating content, as you're working with a boss, as you're home with a family. The first question is, how are you? If I were just to say, how are you? What's your answer? Fine. Yeah. In America, in the United States, what's the answer usually? If you ask an American how they are, they say they're great, yes, or awesome. They lie all the time. So instead, I'd ask you to answer this question. Not just how you are, but let's put some numbers to it. How much energy do you have right now? 0 to 10. 0, you're kind of asleep. And 10, some of you, your feet are going. So right now, think about how much energy you have, and then how pleasant you are. 0 is really unpleasant, very down, and 10, as pleasant as you've ever been. 0 to 10 energy, 0 to 10 pleasantness. Do me a favor, turn to someone behind you, maybe you don't know, and say, hi, my name is David, and I am a 7 on energy and a 7 on pleasantness, or whatever you are. Just take 2 minutes, 1 minute to do that, or less. Turn to someone next to you and introduce yourself. Okay, some of you did and some of you didn't. All right. How many people are low energy and unpleasant in the blue? Anyone in the blue? And you want to? Okay, a few of you. Would you give her a hug, please? Just the person next to you can just comfort you. If you are in the, I'll give you a hug if you want, but I thought the person next to you might do that, but that's fine. So if feeling in that blue area, the word for it is what? Someone in the blue might feel, could be bored a little bit. What else could it be? Tired, depressed, or sad? Sad. Anybody in the red, high energy and unpleasant? Over here? Some of you? Okay. And feeling in the red, you might feel aggressive, angry, or anxious. Anyone in the green, low energy but very pleasant? Okay, a bunch of in the green. Content, satisfied, listening. And anyone in the yellow, high energy and very positive? Okay, good, great. It's not always obvious how people feel. That's why I ask. So that's the first question is, how are you? How is your client? How is your boss? How is your husband? How is your child? How is your editor? The second question is, does it matter? Does it matter how you feel? I mean, you have a job to do. So the second question is, does it matter? Here's a question for you. How should you feel? How should you feel? 10-10? It depends. And we would agree, it depends. What is your job? What are you doing? Does anyone here edit articles before they get posted? Okay. We want to make sure that you're actually in the blue. People in the blue, slightly sad, are more likely to find errors in a document. If you're proofing an article before you put it online and you're super happy, it's not helpful. We have great research on this. What about if your job this afternoon, after this conference, is you're going to generate and brainstorm lots of ideas? You need to be in that yellow. And finally, if you're in the red, that can be helpful. Anxiety. Anyone here have deadlines? Okay. Well, if I'm your boss, I want you to be a little anxious. I want you to hit those deadlines. So we say, how should you feel? And the answer is, it depends. So for every single thing you do, every client meeting, every meeting with an agency, every meeting with a boss or a team, how am I? How is everyone else? How should we feel? Then you want to say, why is that? What happened? Did I not sleep? Was there too much traffic? Did I have an argument? Am I feeling I'm not very good about the direction our strategy is going in? Where do these emotions come from? And then finally, how do you manage your emotions? If you're feeling a little bored or you're depressed or you're sad or you're anxious and it's not helpful, what are you going to do to change your mood? It's up to you. Nobody else is going to do it. So you're here, you're stuck. We've locked the doors, you can't escape. We want you to get the most out of these talks. That's up to you. You've had some great speakers, but to get the most out of this meeting is also up to you. You have to also engage yourself. You have to manage your emotions. And I have to manage emotions of others, which is why I oftentimes keep this ball in my pocket. Because if I see anyone kind of like sleeping, I might use it and toss the ball toward you. So those are the 4 abilities, and this is what we mean by emotional intelligence. Most people have heard, how many people have heard the term emotional intelligence before? Yeah, it's pretty common around the world. What you probably don't know is that it was invented by 2 people, Peter Salovey and Jack Mayer, in 1990. They're researchers. No one read their articles. It's horrible. This is pre-digital. If we had Google Analytics back then, their page views would be 0. In the tracking that was done 26 years ago, it was 0. Nobody read their article. 5 years later, a guy named Daniel Goleman wrote a great book. And this is the power of marketing. He took a scientific theory and he made it accessible to everyone. It's great what he did. It's because of him I'm here today. Without good marketing, a good idea is worth nothing. I should mention that Jack Mayer teaches psychology in New Hampshire in the United States, and Peter Salovey is the president of Yale University, where the medal came from that I gave my volunteer earlier. And they're 2 of my best friends. That's how I got involved. Some years ago, Peter and I wrote a book, and I think next month it will be published in Russian. I was in Beijing last week because we just published this book in simplified Chinese in Beijing. And actually, the book is endorsed by a venture capitalist at Sequoia, the president of Tsinghua University, and someone named Jack Ma, who you may know. He's the co-founder of Alibaba. So that was a great event. And then I think next month it'll be available in Russian. So this is the background, and this is why we're here today, because of marketing. We also feel that emotions are important. What are the outcomes? People hire an emotional intelligence, create more positive work environments, they have more empathy, these are teams that have emotional intelligence come together more quickly. These are some quick outcomes of emotional intelligence. There's also great data around decision making. So if you're pushing people to make decisions, it's important to have a great understanding of emotions. And this is a study that just says people who are more emotionally intelligent, that's on the right, are less influenced by anxiety as they make decisions. So even though they're made to feel anxious, they still make decisions without being influenced by that unrelated anxiety. A few more basic principles to share with you. This is called mood congruent recall. If you create content, a really sad story on your site, and people later, the next day, they're in a store, they're making a buying decision online, if they're also sad, when they recall it, they'll recall more information. If they read a story that's really sad, and later they're happy, they're not going to remember the original information. In other words, if you write a sad story and you want to push a decision, make sure that they stay in that same mood. Memory is impacted by emotions. Your strongest memories from your life have a strong emotional component. And this just says match the mood at the time of reading with the time of buying or recall. You also want to use emotion words. When you create content, when you're talking to people, when you're working with clients, don't just say you're fine. We take the same chart and we overlay different emotion words to it. Say I'm not. If you've gone to a restaurant and you've been served a vegetable, don't say you hate vegetables. Do you really hate vegetables? What did they do to you? Or do you dislike them? So be precise in your language. I think these are much more powerful stories that you can tell. In every single interaction, we also think that you can use this approach. We've simplified it to 3 steps. You first want to map your mood using our mood map. How are you? How is the client? You want to match the mood. You want to show empathy. So if your client is down, is a little sad, and you come in there with the typical, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Yo, dude. You know, you're in English, we'd say you're an asshole. I don't know if you have a similar expression in Russian. Probably not. No. Right, so I think you want to read your client, your boss, and you want to first match that emotion. You want to have empathy. You want to make a connection. This is what engagement is. We heard that earlier. You also want to know, is that a good mood to be in? And again, your job is not always to be happy. You want to think about what the task is and then match the mood to the task. But a lot of times you have to move that emotion, and so you quickly need to bring people out of a sad mood. You need to engage them. How do you manage your emotions? How do you stay calm? How do you stay focused? And how do you move and manage the emotions of others? This is very difficult to do consistently, but you can do this with every interaction. And here are some real quick tips about how you can do it. I don't think how are you is a great question, because people lie, they don't know how they feel, and when you ask, hey, how are you, you're actually not asking a question. So here are some much better ways. How has your day been like so far? Is this still a good time for the meeting? Well, you know, it's okay. That is a message. On a scale of 0 to 10, what did you think of our presentation, our proposal? Someone says, I thought it was an 8. You're very happy. I would ask another question. What do I need to do with my proposal to get you to a 10? And then they give you a 5-page list of all the changes. So these are much better questions. If you really want to know the answer to how are you, you need to ask these kinds of questions. Well, someone has just given you some information, they've told you how they felt, and it's important to reflect their emotions, to show empathy, to make a connection. I can see how some people would feel that way. It seems like you're a little disappointed in the proposal. What can I do? You want to mirror the behavior. You want to mirror the body language. You want to make that connection. It takes a lot of work to do that. And then moving emotions. Before every critical meeting you have, you want to prepare. So on this side, on the left side, how do you manage your emotions? Well, prepare. What could go wrong? After all, what could go wrong? You saw the video earlier, or some of the video of the airplane crashing. This is what you want your pilot to do before he or she takes off. What could go wrong? You want to plan for every client meeting you have. You're ready, you're prepared, you're confident. What could go wrong? Just be ready. You want to, what does that say? Change the environment. So you want to select the environment over here. What day of the week do you meet? What time of day? I have a client who has his team meetings Monday mornings at 9 o'clock. And I said, well, wait a minute. Aren't Mondays like really crazy days? He said, yeah. Is that a good time for the meeting? And he thought about it and he said, no, that's the worst possible time. So pick the time and the place. Prepare. What can you do? On the other side, there are other kinds of techniques. You can psych people up. You can psych yourself up. No matter how, anyone ever do this? Have you ever been totally exhausted and you had a meeting and you had to psych yourself up? You do this all the time. You do this all the time. So those are strategies that you can use in order to change you, manage your emotions, and manage the emotions of others. So we believe that emotions are a source of data. Emotions drive everything. Emotions help you think. They don't always get in your way. But when the emotion is not matched to the job or the task, that's when there's a problem. And you need to recognize how you feel, what the task is, and if there's not a match, you have to manage or move people's emotions. You do this all the time. Many of you do it without thinking about it. And I'm just suggesting, as you create content, as you develop proposals, as you have meetings, is to constantly do the emotional work it takes to get the most out of every single meeting and every single minute of your life. So that is what we mean by emotional intelligence. It's a scientific theory that was developed in 1990 by my two friends and colleagues. It has incredible practical applications. And it's something that we teach to people around the world, from Beijing to Mumbai to Australia. And emotions are universal, and it applies to everything that you do. So with that, we might have a time for one or two questions. Is that? But thank you.
First of all, no, just applause. Большое спасибо Дэвиду. Да, вопросы. Кто-нибудь хочет задать вопросы? Any questions? Пожалуйста, Даниэль.
So I'm really glad to meet you one day in my life. It's amazing. And my name is Elvira, and I have a question about the book that you were talking about. So it's written that it's emotional intelligence, yes, for managers. So does this book correspond to ordinary employees?
Sure, absolutely. The same idea can be applied to anything. In In fact, our work is for leaders, for managers, but also you can be an individual contributor. And about 10 years ago, we started to apply this in schools as well. So we teach teachers to use these principles in schools. Even for you, whatever you're going to do after, today, tonight, tomorrow, whatever you do, you can apply this model, this theoretical model, to your everyday life. So absolutely. And there's some very practical tips in there for individuals.
Спасибо. Еще вопросы?
Yeah. Hey, David. I'm here on the left. Name's Anton. Nice to meet you. I'm from Maxim Magazine, Russia. So you've mentioned that we have to adapt emotions while we meet the clients and the colleagues and bosses. So in Russia, people are usually quite dreamy. If I always adapt my emotions to people I meet at work, I'm going to be constantly grimy myself. That's not how it goes. So what do you say? Do you adapt your emotions constantly to other people's? Or is that just a theory? Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, absolutely. I can see that. Russians are much nicer than you think that you are. That's the first thing. Everybody feels the same emotions. I think Russian culture is just less expressive of positive emotions. I think they're still there, but I think the culture doesn't allow you to express the positive emotions. But I actually do believe the initial thing, if you're in an aggressive mood, I think you should still first match that. And then try to move those emotions gradually. It is exhausting. There's this term called emotional labor. If you're exhausted at the end of your day, and many of you are, it's not just because of lack of sleep, it's because you're matching these emotions. But I think you initially do need to match because you want to see the world through their eyes, right? We hear all the time about empathy or see the world through my eyes. That's in part how you can do it. And then you disengage and you try to move them to be a little more positive, just a little bit, and you to be a little more positive so they're open to an idea. But it can be really draining, absolutely. But I do think you're happier than you give yourselves credit for, so.
Thank you. Еще вопросы?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have one question. Hey, David. Really nice to meet you. I'm glad to sit here, and thanks our partners for you to see. I also have one small question. I'm really emotional people, and I'm from L'Oreal, and we're working at L'Oreal, and each time we're meeting, we smile to each other and asking how are you, and so on. Yeah, and it's really close to my philosophy to try and to make people more positive and maybe more happy or something like this. And I also have a small question. Do you have maybe trainings or, I don't know, maybe YouTube channel or something, different online trainings, how to control your emotions? Because it's really first common to me from my HR to control my emotions sometimes because you really need to, yeah. So this is my question. Thank you.
I was very worried when you said I have a small question. Yeah, because it's usually a big question. Yeah, I mean, there's materials online. You have to be very careful. When we say control emotions, sometimes we think it's never to show emotion, and I think that's wrong. Just to let you know, when we have a test of emotional intelligence, also actually published in Russian by my colleagues, women score much higher than men on emotional intelligence. And yet, who is more likely to show that they're upset at work, women or men? Who's more likely maybe to even cry at work, women or men? And yet we say women are more emotional. Women are actually more emotionally intelligent. In general, as a group, if a woman cries at the office, they're over it. They move on. So be careful when we say control your emotions. I just say be able to turn on and off any of those 4 basic emotions. And so if you're feeling emotional, I say that's great. I don't think that's a bad thing. The people we need to worry about are those who are never expressing emotions and constantly suppress their emotions, which happens for the most part to be, they're more likely to be men than women. So yeah, you can look online, just do a little search, and you'll find some resources. But don't think you need to control your emotions. You leverage emotions, utilize emotions. They're incredibly helpful. They exist. Whether you agree or disagree, emotions are out there. So be expressive. And the other thing I would say is use emotion words. There was a slide with all those emotion words. In a calm way, you can say, I was very disappointed. I was very frustrated. Instead of having the emotion under it, use the words. That's also really helpful and very, very powerful. Small question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I have a very small question. Is this technique some way connected to NLP?
I don't know much about it, so we try to, I think some of the techniques you can apply. Cognitive behavioral therapy is another one, dialectical behavior therapy. So a lot of the work in psychology that you probably read in the magazine, psychologies.ru, some of those techniques are very, very helpful. Relaxation, mindfulness, yoga, all those techniques are really, really helpful.
I mean, changing the behavior of the partner, somebody, it's absolutely like NLP techniques when you manage somebody's emotions, when you, no?
It's a little different because we believe much more strongly in the need to match emotions.
Yes,
to make the connection first.
That's 100% NLP.
Yeah. And I don't know enough to. Then I will defer to you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Еще вопросы? Thank you very much.